Hello, welcome to this level 2 video within my energetic system series. This is intended to be a sort of 201 discussional video. Hopefully you have watched the 3-part dissecting the torus videos before this one, so that you could kind of understand all of the pieces that join together at this concept of the reality bubble, the energetic sphere of conscious awareness that I will be mostly talking about in this video. So if you missed those videos, I really suggest checking those out first to have the background knowledge. The point of realization that comes with understanding this 3-parted torus, understanding that it is a tool that has purpose and that is incorporated, and we use in a way that is not exactly 3-dimensional. Yes, there are plenty of 3D workings that are used and done through the torus. But the Torus tool can be used in all densities and through a multitude of dimensions. And it's my hope, by bringing it back to the very foundations of the workings, that everybody can see more generically the possibilities and potentials of the tool, so that when we go and we take a step in and apply a filter and look at the reality through the filter with the tool, we can understand what processes that tool can do at that layer, and why, and what will be beneficial and what will not be as beneficial. Because the tool in itself, as I discussed in those Torus videos just recently, it's an energy processor, basically, for energetic exchanges. And as I said, this energy processing tool happens on a microscopic level, on a nano level. It happens on a macro level, on an astral level, and all the shades in between. And so, first and foremost, it was my intention and hopes that we could understand the 3 layers of the tool, sort of the 3 functions that are available for the tool. And then we could dive into the layers and use our base knowledge of the tool to examine our options and what will work best to use the tool to its best capabilities, and also for our highest enjoyment and benefit as well, right? Because at the end of the day, it's wonderful to learn about all these things. It's great to know about energy exchanges and systems, metaphysics, physics, electromagnetics, all about the ether and the field and all of this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, right, it's like, well, why? Where do I fit into this knowledge? How do I apply this knowledge to my current first-person perspective, my reality bubble, my layer that I take part in, this in-between space, right? And so by building these base layers, we will get there. And it really, really has just miraculous and amazing benefits to each and every one of us. I have seen them and I work through them every day, and that's really the intentions and the reasons that I've come to build this whole series and share this information. Same thing with sharing anything and everything on my channel, on my site. It's all for this journey in ascension, this traveling and gathering of information to widen my spectrum of conscious awareness, so that I can fully embody my journey here and make the best impact on the whole as I can and as I'm meant to. So I do really see great worth in all of this. I know it is nuanced, and we're really taking it down into this small sort of almost imaginary layer. It's not physical, and it's frequency based, and it's that spirit body based information. So sometimes it can sort of be discarded, and I really hope that I will discourage anybody from just sort of doing that and clicking away and passing over things because you don't see a direct benefit to manifesting, you know, your dream car or your job or your soulmate or whatever. All of that manifesting what you want is actually a byproduct that becomes aligned divinely without really your conscious knowledge or your conscious input. It gets called forth to you through your inner core, through that language of frequency that's ever flowing from you. That your words actually don't really have any impact on. The frequency flows first, and it's whether or not your words and your emotions match that initial frequency, whether you get a harmonious passing of your information, or whether you're causing dissonance and ripples and distortions from words and emotions after the fact of this sort of frequency that vibrates through the ether that happens first. So that's why it's my intention to start with these basics of the tools and then turn the lens inwards and learn and practice with the tools inwards before we ever even worry about what the external is. I believe maybe in level 3 I will start to get into the external implications of the work and of the practice and of alchemy and light and shadow work and all of that. But if we could just slow down and remember that although we have a great calling of service to others, although we want to be actionary in our realities, we want to be catalytic and cause change and bring in new solutions, bring in these more positive sort of new earth alignments that we really sense and feel in the collective that are sort of starting to hover and want to be brought in. We can't be rushed in this. And so we must really first do our inner work as those servants and realize that when we're doing inner work for the self, we're really a reflection of Source and Great Other as the self. And so as we do cleansing, clearing for ourselves, as we do our own internal light and shadow work, we're really servicing the infinite creator. We're really servicing the collective, our community, and even our direct, intimate relationships of our immediate families and our immediate partnerships. Even though we're maybe not saying a word to them, even though we're not actually doing anything physically, making any visible changes right now. Doing the inner balancing and doing the inner work causes those frequency changes, causes the inner core shifts, which then reverberate out. So that's really my intention with breaking it down and starting with these real basic points. And I do apologize about the light off and on and off and on. I have poor lighting in my room, and it's a partially cloudy day here. So now it's been off and on and off and on. We'll ride it out here. Bear with me, please. I hope it's not distractional. So really, this level 2 discussional video, I want to just introduce people to what the influence of the observer has, what the creator consciousness and the boss, the influence it really has on each of these sacred boundaries, each of these toroidal, Torus sort of reality bubble, energetic spheres that we create, and that I had discussed in this 3-part of dissecting the Torus and how all these 3 things come together. Well, what are these 3 things? And I did talk slightly about that already, you know, giving references of all the different ways that they appear. For ourselves, you know, the scope and the scale of what we choose to look at is really what sets our boundaries. It's really what sets the perspective. And we are made up of unlimited levels of these reality bubbles. I wish I had like a better, cooler word. I've been saying that throughout this sort of level 2 videos here. You know, I hate to just call it Torus because I feel like that there's a misrepresentation happening in the mainstream sort of about the Torus. And if people haven't heard or seen my infographics or heard others talking about maybe the actual workings of what it is, it gets misconstrued. Just like the concept of a wave and a particle is totally misconstrued. And I'm off track again. I'm so sorry. But the perspective of the observer, whatever the creator consciousness has as its role, it sets the scene, basically. And then within that scene, it can choose to dive deeper if it wants to. And this is because it's made up of, you know, the same thought energy that everything is. And there's infinite availability for exploration. Just like I said, you can add a 0 at whatever point of counting from 1, 2 to 3 if you feel necessary to examine more, to dive deeper, to create a bigger space for you to learn counting within. You can do 1.01 and count all the way to 2 using that placeholder of having the tenths and the hundredths spot. And that gives you a lot more ground to cover, numbers to count through, right, in your exploration. And that's what happens really when we take our creator consciousness, say who you are in your first person view, Allie, me, myself, and I go and divide it into mind, body, and spirit and create 3 levels of consciousness, 3 bosses. I am adding a 0 in there in the placeholders and saying, okay, each one of these placeholders, has value in there to be explored, and then to dive into it and explore it. And when we do this sort of separation of mind, body, and spirit, this is similar to the same themes and the same energies that we see divided up when we take anything into sacred threes. The sacred 3 is a building block of activity, right? And we'll get way more into this when we start to talk about the field, potentialities, mathematics, vortex mathematics, understanding the 369 of the pillar of creation of 3D, taking 2D into 3D, and how vortex mathematics creates this other potentials for building into 5 dimensions. And we'll talk about sacred geometry and about platonic solids later as well. But just for now, understand that the basics of working, of division of infinite intelligence, this 3-part working is mirrored everywhere. And just like the torus can be split into 3 parts, and it's a masculine, a feminine, and then the combination, the workings, the union of the 2. The same I have given as creator consciousness, and the beautiful understanding of 1 human plus 1 human equals 3, and saying that 1 plus 1 equals a whole newness, and that we have 1 human plus 1 human equals a family, right? It equals mother, father, child. It doesn't just equal an extra human, because those 3 make a family unit together. They create a whole new concept of life and working that they represent altogether, that they don't represent. They represent aspects of it, potentialities of it coming together when they are separated. But it's only in the union of the 3 that they could represent that concept, that full working. And the Holy Trinity is like that very much, where we've separated it into Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost sort of aspects of it. And there's just a lot of other versions. And I'll share an infographic too, where I broke down this sacred formation of exchange that happens when we get together multiple creator consciousness. And the building of the union is magical. And when two creator consciousness, quote unquote, reality bubbles come together, they create together something that was only potential before. And what they go into that creation with imprints that reality sphere newness, the third coming together, and sets a tone for it, sets an atmosphere. It sets a spectrum of potential points for discovery based on the two that have come together, you know? And our systems within are continuously doing this in their own layers. And a beautiful example of that is your sacred masculine and your sacred feminine parts of your own self coming together and merging to create this essence of higher self, this soul essence of a complete union of you, of your, you know, your soul essence, I guess is what I'll just leave it at that. The mind, body, and spirit are similar. We have the mind, which is the emotions and the sort of receiver of information, the feminine aspect. We have the body, which is the actionary, the more dominant masculine version. And then we have the spirit body, which is the morphing and blending of both. And furthermore, when we dive into each of these, we will then realize you can go into the spirit, conscious boss, and into the layer and filter of working of that reality. And when you're in that perspective, then you'll see a further breaking down of three, and there'll be a masculine and a feminine representation of the spiritual body and a coming together that makes the whole. There'll be a dark and a light to the spiritual body. There'll be a positive and negative systems that are working, seeking balance between the spiritual body and for the spiritual body. And it will see the spiritual self, the spiritual boss, as creator consciousness of that world. Same thing with the physical body. Positive and negative systems seeking harmonious balances, working for the self as a boss, a container of that whole world. And same thing with the mind's boss. There is a working in a whole, a three, a tri-scale that is a representation of that workings. And then you can take it even further into each one. And this is the exploration of manyness. You know, I am through level 2 going to take us through individual systems within the body, and we will talk more about the inner core and the magnetic battery that is at the center of us, because there's such a beautiful opportunity for sacred reflection when we dive within the systems within us, and we inhabit that inner toroidal, that magnetic core that is organically negatively aligned. It is organic and self-fulfilling service of self that is positively aligned in its intentions organically. And so when we get comfortable with that original setting, and we see how negatively oriented systems can actually work as a balancing portion to hold overall positivity still, I think that will really light a lot of light bulbs for people. I think that will really be a guiding guide points for others out there in their own workings to really own, accept, and hold the hand of their shadow, of their negative systems within themselves, and really do better balancing work, get better results, more harmonious solutions for those systems within you. And this is also why I feel it's so important that we do the inner work first, because when we turn our lens completely inwards and we look at negative and positive systems, and we look at light and shadow work, our best interest is at heart when we are servicing any negative system within, when we are servicing any shadow within, because they're parts of us, legitimately. We can and must identify with all of those within ourselves. And any trigger points, any uncomfortabilities, the rough spots that need smoothing over, the maybe jerkiness of learning, like if you have ever learned to drive a manual shifting car, there's the jerking of learning how to smoothly hit the clutch and shift the gear, and how to push on the gas just right at the right momentum to get you at the speed, to keep it all sort of flowing. There's a jerkiness that and stalling and forgetting to put it back into first before you get going again when you hit the brake or whatever at a stoplight, you know. That when we're doing that kind of work for ourselves, inside ourselves first, we naturally have more compassion. We naturally can align with that overall positive seeking more innately, because we generally want what's best for us as individuals. As people with a first-person view, we gravitate towards things that feel good to us. We gravitate towards positivity. We want to aspire to things. We want to have purposes and to be admired and to fulfill services. And so it becomes easier to learn those workings. It becomes way easier to offer harmonious solutions to negativity when it's beneficial to you, when it's systems within you, when there are hurts within you, you know. Just like, as an example, for anyone who's a mother or a father, a parent, when you have more than one child and you want to go plan to do something with your kids, you know, you want to have a day out and you want to do something that both of them are going to enjoy, you know, there's this sort of balance of neutrality. There's this harmonious seeking happening when you're deciding what to do, when you're looking at potentials of what you could do. You're weighing the odds with compassion and empathy in your heart and soul from a very deep level, because your children are involved in it, and you love both of your children in very unique, distinct ways, and maybe they even have unique and distinct personalities. They don't even enjoy doing the same things. They are holding those placeholders of opposition for you. They are characters of duality in this setting, and you're looking to balance and find something they both want to do. And there's compromise involved, and not negative compromise. So many people hear the word compromise and they think giving up things. But no, that's a negative, that's a mind warp. That's the inverted version, forced and plastered by the matrix for us to accept what compromise is. That's not it. That's only in the negative spectrum of the graph. If we turn our eyes onto the positive spectrum of the X and Y axis and we look in positive to build over there, we'll see very clearly, just like I just said about when you have both of your children, there is plenty of positive solutions through, and there's plenty of ways for compromise that comes from a seeking of highest good for all involved. And so that is really what I want to encourage, and where I want to get us to shifting our construction, shifting our building into this sort of place setting of more positivity. And that is way more approachable and way more likely to happen when you're the only person involved. Unfortunately, but it is selfish. It's human nature at the same time, especially third density, really egoic, third ray aligned humans, which so much of us are. We've really been sort of anchored and held in this strange stagnation within reality. that holds us in this sort of stalemate where we can't really get into positive alignments for ourselves because we're held back by so much mind control and by so much false programming. So level 2 is going to really be about letting go of the false programming, letting go of all of those attachments, and practicing and learning how to use the tools, those energetic tools of the Taurus, through a filter in an inside lens inside of ourselves. Very personal usage of the tools to get a feel for them before we ever look outside and try to use those tools with another. It's very unfair, and I'm sure most of you can sense and hear the truth in that and understand why that's such a mess out there, because a lot of us have skipped step 1 in all the internal workings, and we're really just trying to jump into external change. So yes, I'm going to leave this video here as sort of threshold bridge into my lecture classic educational video walkthrough, where I'm going to give some infographics and talk just a bit about the field or the plane of existence, the external reality bubble that all of us sit within, and that all of the playscape or this building happens within. So keep in mind the importance of perspective, and keep in mind here at the start that we are all inhabiting this sort of first-person view of life. This is the regular setting of the observer. But even just as regular conscious humans, we have access to different levels of consciousness. And practicing and comparing between your lenses is really going to be a beneficial practice before we get into anything else. So getting comfortable with what it means when you turn your lens inwards and you look at smaller systems within you, and then also what it looks like when we turn our lens outwards and we look at systems that are greater than us, that are offered out in the external world. And the boundaries that are available between the external and between your own workings in your own world. I say this not to get wrapped up in external things and not to get ahead of ourselves, but to realize where the connections are at and to be able to pull back from those external entanglements and to not concern yourself with them and to know where they're rooted inside, and then go find the roots inside. Don't really worry about what they've been attached to out there or what the purpose of that was or what the influence of that was. Just following the roots back in towards you and using your inner work, using this energy alchemy practice of light and shadow to care for those things within you and to heal those things within you is all that needs to be done. It, as a byproduct or a symptom, that external thing will shrivel up or will do whatever it's going to do. It will totally keep, keeping on wherever it's been out there, because it's actually an illusion. It's not real. But again, this is workings that we really have to learn inside of ourselves, the whole terrain of the inner working, and what the role of the observer feels like when we're doing internal working, and what the role of the observer looks like when we're just observing our life, our own direct life. Not external nonsense, not things that have nothing to do with us that we're wrapped into, not illusions, delusions, all that kind of nonsense out there that has never touched your real world and has never interacted with you directly. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Sensing and understanding where that is in your world, creating a good boundary, in exploring the insides of that boundary. Forgetting about the outside world, building your fence around your property, your homestead, your dominion, your physical vessel. Okay, that's what this is about. And then let's do the inner work. You know, let's do some property repairs. Let's do some, you know, farming, gardening, whatever the case. There's infinite workings inside of that metaphor of all the things that could need to be done on a homestead. The same quality, the same manyness is what I want to try to relay and convey as inner workings within your inner terrain. So next video will be a deep dive with infographics about a map of this inner terrain, and we'll go over some of the major systems within it and talk about how we can get into those conscious levels and do some discovery, do some work, see, you know, do some assessments, see what kind of work needs to be done in those levels. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this video and to bear with me as I skirt around a very difficult topic that has lots of moving working pieces. I really appreciate your attention and your dedication to your self-improvement and to improving the collective and our transition here through the densities to graduation to new earth, whatever you like to call that. It is what it is, right? We're on it. This is how we're going to keep moving through. So, in the meantime, if you're looking for more, always find me directly on amariespeaks.com. There's a plethora of free information, tips, and tools over everything introspective, spirituality, and happiness over there, along with tons of things, my writing, books, divination and readings and all types of that jazz if you're interested in that. Or you can find me on Telegram, Spotify. Yeah. So thank you so much for witnessing and observing my contribution. Thank you for your contribution to the collective. I hope you have a beautiful day or evening wherever in the world you are. I'll talk to you soon.